Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and decode the absolutely incredible evolutionary journey of plants. Today, we're zooming in on a totally game-changing leap in biological history, the transition from mosses to ferns. Now, if you are gearing up for your grade 11 life sciences exams, you are in exactly the right place. We are going to totally master the key terminology and those tricky structural adaptations that examiners just love to throw at you. So, think about the core problem of early life on land. I mean, picture walking through a really damp forest. The moss is like the soft green carpet right under your feet, barely a few millimeters thick, right? But literally right next to it, you might brush past a fern that reaches up to your waist, or honestly, even higher. How did nature bridge that massive gap? That's what we're solving today. Here is our quick roadmap for today. Number 1, reading the cladogram. 2, bryophytes are ground huggers. 3, pteridopytes reaching new heights. 4, comparing the plant pioneers. And finally, number 5, acing your life sciences exam. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, reading the cladogram and tracing plant evolution. To really wrap our heads around plant biodiversity, we have to know how to read the map of their evolutionary history. Now, the absolute crucial thing to remember about a cladogram, which you might also hear called a phylogenetic tree, is that it always starts way down at the bottom with a common ancestor. From there, it tracks upward as organisms develop new adaptations. It's basically a family tree, but instead of tracking, say, who married whom, it tracks which plant figured out a brilliant new survival trick over millions of years. And trust me, examiners are obsessed with testing your ability to track those new adaptations. So let's trace how this actually builds. Every single step upward on this tree represents a major structural upgrade. We start down at the base with the simplest plant pioneers, the bryophytes, which don't have any vascular tissue. Then, boom, a massive structural leap happens, the development of vascular tissue, which brings us up to pteridopytes. Further up the line, plants develop seeds, giving us gymnosperms and angiosperms. But for our explainer today, we are keeping our magnifying glass laser-focused on steps 2 and 3. Moving right along to section 2, bryophytes, the ground huggers. At the very, very base of our plant family tree, right after that ancient algal common ancestor, we find the bryophytes. This group includes the common mosses you see all the time. Now, the defining feature of a bryophyte is that its body is a thallus. And because it's a thallus, it lacks true roots, stems, and leaves. They don't have a deep root system to anchor themselves into the soil, and they definitely don't have rigid stems to hold themselves upright. That is exactly why they are stuck being flat little ground huggers. Let's break down their key features, because these are super important. First off, they are non-vascular. No xylem, no phloem to move water and nutrients around. Without that internal plumbing, their size is completely capped. Also, their gametophyte generation is dominant. So that small, leafy-looking green part you actually see, that's the gametophyte. Lastly, and underline this in your notes because it is highly testable, they are entirely dependent on water for fertilization. Their gametes literally need a layer of water to swim and fuse together. Oh, and they reproduce using spores that are produced in a little structure called a sporangium. Let's step it up. Section 3, pteridophytes, reaching new heights. As we move up our cladogram, we hit the biological inciting incident of plant evolution, the vascular system. Evolving xylem and phloem gave ferns the internal plumbing they desperately needed to pull water up from the soil and push nutrients all around the plant. Xylem handles that upward flow of water, while the phloem distributes the manufactured food. This breakthrough right here is the real game changer. It's what finally allowed plants to defeat gravity and actually grow tall. But ferns didn't just build straight upward like modern trees do. They developed a really unique structure called a rhizome. So instead of a vertical trunk, ferns rely on these underground horizontal stems. This sturdy horizontal base is what supports their massive branching leaves, which in biology we call fronds. Now, next time you see a fern, take one of those fronds and flip it over. It is fascinating. You'll see these tiny brown spots. Those are the sorus, or sori, if we're talking plural. The sorus is this vital protective structure that houses a whole group of sporangia. And just like we saw in the mosses, these sporangia produce spores to drive the plant's reproductive cycle. Definitely file that term away. It is a classic for multiple choice questions. But here is where ferns completely flipped the script. While mosses spend most of their lives stuck in that small gametophyte stage, ferns made the larger, spore-producing sporophyte generation the dominant one. So when you are admiring a big, beautiful fern in the woods, you are actually looking at the sporophyte generation. This major shift toward a dominant sporophyte is a huge hallmark of evolutionary advancement. All right, let's put it all together in section 4, comparing the plant pioneers. A classic exam format is placing these two evolutionary milestones side by side to evaluate their differences and similarities. This mental matrix is basically a perfect snapshot of how ferns leveled up. Ferns have vascular tissue, mosses do not. Ferns have true roots, rhizomes, and fronds. Mosses are just a basic thallus. Ferns are sporophyte dominant, mosses are gemiphyte dominant. But wait, there's a catch. Despite every single one of the fern's structural upgrades, they still share one ancient, unavoidable limitation with mosses. Both of them absolutely need a film of water to reproduce. To really drive that connection home, let's talk about the prothallus. When a fern spore first germinates on the damp ground, it doesn't just instantly pop up looking like a big fern. Not at all. It starts as a tiny prothallus. This prothallus is a simple, thallus-like structure that completely lacks vascular tissue. Honestly, it looks and acts remarkably like a primitive moss. This is a mind-blowing connection because it proves that in their early gametophyte stages, ferns are still pretty poorly adapted to dry land, linking them right back to their moss-like ancestors. Okay, home stretch. Section 5, Acing Your Life Sciences Exam. Let's translate everything we've just uncovered into a rapid-fire review so you can totally crush your exam questions. Starting with a classic short answer question. Which two groups of plants are entirely dependent on water for fertilization? Think back to the very base of our cladogram and that matrix we just went over. The answer, of course, is bryophytes and pteridopytes. Because neither of them have seeds, both mosses and ferns require a film of water so their male gametes can literally swim over to the female gametes. If they happen to be in a completely dry environment, there's simply no way for them to complete their life cycle. Let's do another one. Moving further up the cladogram, past the ferns, we finally find plants that evolved seeds to escape that pesky water dependency. But examiners aren't going to let you just say seed plants. What is the specific collective biological term for them? The answer is spermatophytes. Spermato refers to seeds, and phyte means plant. So instead of just writing pine trees and flowering plants on your test, dropping the word spermatophytes proves to the examiner that you actually know the precise terminology for all plants with seeds, encompassing both gymnosperms and angiosperms. All right, one last terminology question for you. Name the protective cap that covers the sporangium in mosses. This is a super specific structural term about how bryophytes protect their delicate little spores right before the wind catches them. The answer is the calyptra. Memorizing that the calyptra is the capsule covering the moss sporangium is going to score you a very easy but very impressive mark. It's literally one of those specific vocabulary words that completely separates a good student from a great one. So we've traced how plants managed to get tall by developing vascular tissue, even while they were still stuck needing water to reproduce. Eventually, gymnosperms evolved wind-dispersed seeds to completely escape that water dependency. But I want you to imagine this. What if a plant decided to stop relying on random gusts of wind and instead started using targeted cross-pollination to create just endless, wildly diverse colors and forms? Well, that brilliant evolutionary leap brings us straight into the incredibly colorful world of angiosperms. It's a whole new branch of the cladogram, but we'll have to save that amazing story for our next explainer. Keep studying that cladogram, and I'll catch you next time.